Oregon State is on a bye week this week, and I know the assistant coaches are out recruiting, and Jonathan Smith, the Oregon State coach, he's out recruiting, and they're doing what coaches do on a bye week, right? They're not locked in with an opponent. They're not preparing for a game. Nobody's talking about Reser Stadium being the setting for a college football game on Saturday, but I'm here to tell you that I hope there's some real activity going on in Corvallis as it pertains to the football program, and I hope that this week has been a very busy week for Scott Barnes and his athletic department. It was last December that Oregon State was celebrating a 10-win football season, a Las Vegas Bowl victory over Florida. Certainly they won the Civil War game. It was a real breakthrough moment for Jonathan Smith in the football program, and it was mid-December that Oregon State announced that Jonathan Smith was being extended. His contract was extended 6 years, about $30.5 million, about $5 million in change per year for Jonathan Smith, and it was a well-deserved pat on the back, a bump in salary, and it was the absolute right thing for Oregon State to do because you've got to, A, reward your coaches who have proven and given you proof of performance. And B, you need to keep the other programs that might be sniffing around your head coach away. And Jonathan Smith's a little different maybe than Dan Lanning, and maybe he's different than Lincoln Riley in that Jonathan Smith played his football at Oregon State. So there's a connection there that gives you an additional advantage. So I'm not saying you need to throw the bank at Jonathan Smith and overpay for him and get overextended. But Oregon State is at a pivotal time with the Pac-2/Pac-12 drama going on in the background, litigation, uncertainty, and clearly I'm being told that the Oregon State and Washington State contingent wants to be able to tell their athletes in front of the December 4th transfer portal window. First window of the transfer period opens on Monday, December 4th, 30-day window. But Oregon State wants to be able to tell its athletes what is going on in front of that window. Wants them to know where they're going to be playing next season. Wants them to know, who the schedule's going to include. And I think part of that is that they're going to want to be able to tell the athletes that Jonathan Smith is part of the program. Now, I'm not saying Michigan State or Northwestern or some other vacancy that comes open isn't going to be bantering about, Jonathan Smith's on a short list or somebody they may want to talk about. That comes with success. But what Oregon State can control is how secure Jonathan Smith feels, how glued he is to the program. And I know that 6 years and $30 million was a big move last December for Oregon State, but the calculus has changed. This is a different equation now. And Dan Lanning has 7 years and $45 million, okay? So you're talking about, Oregon State maybe needing to bump up here with Jonathan Smith and do a very unusual thing and offer him a second extension within a calendar year. And I think that extension should come sooner rather than later, given the December 4th window and the uncertainty and clearly a bunch of talented players at Oregon State that are going to be approached by other schools, other NIL collectives, and, people are going to try to negatively recruit Oregon State. Now, what can Oregon State do? Well, it can control where it's going to play next season. It can give the players the schedule and say, here's who we're going to play. We're going to come out. We're going to have a scheduling partnership with the Mountain West Conference, for example, and here's some non-conference games that we've added, and we're going to play a competitive schedule, and we're going to try to be ranked in the top 15 again, and we're going to try to make a run at getting one of the college football playoff berths, and this is where we're going to live in 2024. They can do all that. But beyond that, I'm looking at Jonathan Smith's contract this year, and he's got a $3 million buyout, which is low by major college football standards. You want that buyout to be higher. You are, of course, okay with that buyout over time, reducing. But I would be really motivated right now if I were Oregon State to give Jonathan Smith more security, more money, and leverage a bigger buyout, especially in 2024 and 2025. Bump that buyout up to $7 to $10 million like Oregon did with Dan Lanning. Oregon was looking clearly at its Big Ten future and going, we need this guy here. We want him to be part of that bridge into the Big Ten Conference. And so Oregon proactively gave Dan Lanning a raise, gave him an extension, raised his buyout significantly to ensure that he was going to be part of the program. Oregon State's got to do the same thing. Oregon State has to step up. And yes, I know they're busy. I know that they're meeting from 8 a.m. in the morning to 5 p.m. They're meeting with the president. They're meeting with consultants. They're talking with the PR people. They're trying to put together schedules and figure out what they're going to do. But in between that, amid that, they've got to recognize that Jonathan Smith is the glue of the Oregon State program. He is the most important person involved in Oregon State's bridge to the future. He's the football coach that has, resurrected the program, took it over from a coach who had quit midseason, and now is focused on not only being bowl eligible for the earliest time in history of Oregon State. They're already at 6 wins. But Jonathan Smith is back to 500. He's 32-32 as a head coach after losing games in year one and inheriting a roster that was a mess. Reward the guy, ensure your future, send a message to the current players on the roster that he's going to be there. This is a no-brainer. I know it's a bye week, but it shouldn't be an off week for Oregon State.